If you're serious about training, one thing you need to own is a shot timer. There's a bunch of different features, functions, benefits, and price points. I'm just going to give you my uncensored 2 cents on features you need, you don't need, and if, well, I'll just say it, the overpriced ones are actually worth it or not. I'm sure some people will be triggered, but that's part of the fun. First off, I'm going to explain the features that I think you need, and the menu, in my opinion, is going to be the most important part for determining which one you want. The main feature, well, at least for me, that I'll toggle between are instant and delay, meaning you just press the button and it instantly beeps, or a delay, meaning you have the timer clipped on your pocket, your belt, your fanny pack, your satchel. Hit the button, and then it gives you a specific amount of time to relax your hands, get ready, knowing the beep is going to come. This feature, I'll talk about this Competition Electronics Pocket Pro 2 for the bulk of this because this is really one of the best timers out there for not a lot of money. The customer service from this company is totally not good from what I've been told. I've never had to use it, but the product I think is good. So anyway, there's a lot of features I like in this that I'm just going to talk about, and then I'll talk about some other timers in a few. Anyway, so one thing I like or that I think is important is the ability to change how long of a duration you have before the beep on the random setting or the delay setting. The reason for that is if it's only set at 1.5 seconds or 2.0 seconds every time, it's going to be really easy to just press the button, get in the start position. You kind of have a good idea of when that sound's about to happen. I don't like that. Instead, I want it to be random, and I want to set the minimum time far enough out so I can press the button, get my hands relaxed at sides, be staring a hole at the target where I want to lay hate on, and then be waiting for that beep. And as soon as the buh start of that beep sounds, then I want to start drawing the pistol or moving or whatever. But I like having that little bit of pause, whether it's anticipation, adding to the stress, whatever. I just want to have time to reset and be completely ready, waiting for the beep to start. So the setting I like, I use this one still a lot to this day, probably 2.2, 2.3 seconds after you press the button till before the first time that it beeps. Again, I think that's important just to give you enough time to set up. The next thing that's quite important for, I'm giving you stuff that matters to me, I don't know if it'll matter to everyone else or not, is being able to adjust how loud the beep is. So to give you an idea, I'll get to the menu. This probably matters more if you have someone you live with, a partner, something like that. If you live alone, it wouldn't be as big of a deal. But again, if you're sharing residence with someone else, they're probably going to care. Going to the volume, all the way loud, all the way quiet. If you're an early morning dry fire or a late night dry fire, your significant other probably will not appreciate it, so being able to turn down the volume is a big help. The other thing you could do is if you have a timer, this was the other one I'll talk about quite a bit, the packed timer. Over the hole where the sound comes out of, you could just put cardboard, foam, cardboard or foam, tape it over the top of this, or just have tape, but just a way to muffle or mute how loud it's going to be. I like this timer quite a bit also, just because it's easy. The menus are navigating through it. Like notice just a second ago I had to press a button to wake it up, and then I've got 4 different buttons to toggle through, and within those settings, within those menus, there's options for settings. This one I don't think is too complicated at all. This is called the Pocket Pro 2, but now I think the model is called Pocket Pro Bluetooth. I think it's the model that replaced this one. But anyway, this menu has a bunch of features. I've used it enough, so it's not a big deal to me. Press a button like just now to wake it up, waiting for a second. Once it lights up and it's woke up, then you just press the buttons to toggle through, and it wasn't a big deal. But if you want something simpler, this pack timer only has 4 buttons on it. The way this works is you press down, like depending on what option you want, there's a variety of different combinations. But for example, between instant and delay, press down these 2 buttons, it blinks. You press one of them for instant, press the other one for delay. I just do it trial and error, press them both, hit the one button. You'll see on this thing either instant or delay. If it wasn't the one I want, hit the both buttons and press the other one. It's easy enough to set. But then you get to the next setting that I want to talk about, which is a par time. Way easier on this one and a little bit more of a pain on that one. You can still do it, and if you're going to get used to any of them, I'm sure with enough use, any of them will seem easy enough. I'm not going to go in detail through, you press this button 4 times. It's easy enough you can find either directions online or watch a YouTube video of somebody smarter than me talking you through the menu. Anyway, to explain what a par time is, it'll be after the beep starts, a specific amount of time that you've set, and you'll have another beep. So, an example, I want a 3-second par time to do the drill. Press the button for delay, hands at side, it beeps. Draw the gun, do the thing in dry fire. Then there'll be a second beep coming at the 3-second mark or whatever, maybe 3.2. It could be down to the 10th of a second, whatever time frame I determined. Then I could assess I had plenty of extra time, that was not a tight enough par time, or that's not even close to enough time, I need to extend it out. You could adjust the par time to be more or less time. Keep going in your training, and it builds in kind of letting you know what the sound sounds like for speed. And the way that I mean, let's say you do a 1-second par time. In that 1 second, you're going to go from hands relaxed at sides to completely drawing your pistol, having a grip you deem to be acceptable. The sights are on the target, not anything with pressing the trigger, but just in a second, I'm going to go from drawing the pistol, having it extended, and the sight on the target. Having that second, knowing that that second beep's coming and trying to race that, that's a good thing for building in the sense of speed, a little bit of stress. I think it's a quite helpful thing for your training. But, again, it kind of depends on where you're at in your training and something to try. But that's going to be super easy to do with this one. And it's a little bit more complicated. You can do it with the pack timer. It's just a little bit more of a process. And once you get used to it, maybe you prefer that. So it's worth just looking at the menus. But those are the main things that I think you're going to want with any of the timers. Well, I promise you a little bit of crazy talk. From what I've seen I've seen customer service stories firsthand. I've experienced them with this one, Kestrel. This is, I just let it play out. I wasn't a like, do you know who I am kind of thing. I got the timer dead on arrival, and it took me, I think, 60 days to maybe 15 or 20 days to get an RMA. Then I got ghosted for like 45 days. Then I started sending emails. I couldn't get a response even from the company. Called the company, got a voicemail, couldn't get a response. Ended up dropping a random comment on a friend's post on Instagram. Someone in the comments worked for Kestrel or the company that owns them or makes them or whatever, then commented. And anyway, that was the only way I even got any action. Otherwise, I was completely ghosted from the company, and the thing didn't work out of the box. So I'm not trying to be somebody to talk hate, but like this was probably the worst customer service story I've ever had with any company. Was with Kestrel, specifically the timers. Maybe their wind meters are way different. But anyway, that was not good. I also have friends that have had bad experience with the competition electronics. One of them was like dead on arrival where it fell apart in the box. One friend, it was having issues, and he sent it in, and they ended up just fixing it and sending it back with a bill where I think he asked for an estimate. He didn't ask for it to be done anyway. I'll stop with the horror stories, but I think the point is, I don't know that any of these are great about customer service. I see timers as a consumable. And I'm somebody I don't just try to spend money like it's going out of style, as the saying goes. I'm pretty careful or try to be careful and not buy dumb things. But with timers, I've heard enough bad stories. I think maybe you'll luck out and have a good encounter when you need to have it serviced, but otherwise, I just buy them, and if they go bad, I don't try to do any kind of warranty work. You could send an email and see if you get a response. But from what I've seen, most of these companies aren't great about that, unfortunately. But the bright side to that, this Pocket Pro 2 is, I'm pretty sure, the first timer I ever bought. The screen, let's see if I can get to it good. It's probably not going to show up very well. But part of the screen, I can kind of see it. It's like deformed where it's got part of the, like it won't read right, or part of the screen is kind of where it's like it got a gray spot. It's a little bit of a crack maybe forming there. I remember doing a class in Minnesota where it was downpouring, and I got this thing so wet, and it had water under the readout. You couldn't even read it anymore. I knew the buttons so well. I could just go through the buttons, and I knew how to get between instant and delay, and it was still working fine. The screen was just smoked. I'm like, well, we'll see what happens. All I did was I had a second timer with me that I put inside of a bag. I took the battery out, opened the cover, just set it in the trunk of my car, fanned out, got back to the hotel, set it out in my hotel overnight, left it sit for a couple days. Then I put the battery back in it, started it up, and it started working again. So, like I said, I've seen some horror stories with these, but overall, If it's real talk and I'm being real with you, this thing has been really good to me. So let's talk about price points. If I had to steer you towards one of them, it would be knowing the customer service is probably not going to be good on any of them. I think this isn't a lifetime purchase. In my 2 cents, these are just a consumable and something you need for training. If you don't throw them, drop them. As long as they're not broken when you get them out of the box, they should last you a long time. The example of this one's probably a 10-year-old timer, something like that. That's pocket clip still works, the menu still works, it still goes in my rotation. I take it all over the country with me just fine. The two I'd easily recommend are these two, the packed timer and the Competition Electronics Pocket Pro. I think the new one's called Bluetooth. The reason is they're around $130. I'm sure you'll find a deal. Maybe it's $120, maybe it's $140. They're kind of the most price cost-effective options. They do all the things you want it to do, and they hold up well. The other thing to talk about, the pocket clip. This pocket clip is better compared to the packed timer. If you could see, it's just a piece of metal, and it's a little bit more of a pain to get it over your belt or pocket. Subtle differences otherwise. These are the two. Do your research, see what you like. Those are the features I think you want. These are the two I would tell you to buy. The Kestrel, full disclosure, the reason I paid full retail for this, and this was, again, the worst experience I've ever had. I still continue to use it because it has the loudest beep. And if this one ever does buy, I'll buy another one just to have it, because as an instructor, I want to have the loudest beep that I can for a class, because you get a wide variety of age groups and abilities to hear. So sometimes people have not wore earplugs throughout their career, been in the military, whatever, tendonitis, constant ringing, all that kind of stuff. It's just nice to have the loudest beep I can. So whether they're young, old, good hearing, bad hearing, earplugs, then ear muffs, regardless of the situation, I want to be able to hit the beep on the timer and have them hear it throughout the line as much as I can. The one bad thing I have to say about this one, Competition Electronics, is it's not that loud. Even as the batteries start to die or the batteries go lower, all of these will get a little bit quieter. This one's just for an open enrollment class. If I have 12 or 20 people on the line standing in the middle pressing this, even if they're listening for it, it's just not always easy to hear it all the way on the outside the outside edges of the line. With the Kestrel, you can. The Kestrel also has a bunch of really complicated features and stuff that's probably pretty cool, but I just don't have a use for it. For me, I'm just looking at what the overall time for the drill is. That's something else I should talk about. It's just the splits breakdown. It's just what the overall time for the drill is. You can look at your first shot time, which would be your draw, what the splits were. If you had a reload or a movement, you could see how long that took. So it's a good way to get analytics, and you can kind of get an idea for how long things take you, or just a total drill time. So a common example, a bill drill, draw and shoot 6 shots. Could use the timer and say my draw was a 1.3. The splits were 18, 17, 21, 13, whatever. And you could see the split times. Then the total time was this time. You can kind of get a breakdown and see the longer split was a trigger freeze. My draw was a little bit slow. The overall time wasn't where I want to be. And this is how I'm going to effectively change that, or the area I want to work on improving. So that's what the shot timer's for. The Kestrel, again, has a bunch of different options and features. Historic data that I don't really use. I just have this because it's the loudest beep. Once I got one that's working, I haven't had any issues. This one uses the more expensive batteries, the lithium, the CR123s, like what Surefire lights use, or I don't know what else. Flashlights are the main things I can take up, but it's the more expensive lithium batteries. Streamlight uses them, but the more expensive lithium batteries. Otherwise, the other two options just take 9 volts, which are way cheaper. Something else to think about. But if you're not teaching, you're just looking at training yourself, one of these are what I like. The other thing, talking about batteries, these are replaceable batteries. There's a couple different models. Like I think CED has one where it's an internal battery and you have to plug it in to recharge it. I don't like those just because if I forget to recharge it, or I'm on a dirt pit in the middle of nowhere, I'm not going to want to plug it in or something. Instead, I'm just going to have, I always travel with 2 timers, so I'll have a backup one. Even if I was just going to practice on the range, just me not teaching, I'd have my timer and I'd have 1 extra battery just with me at all times. That way, if the battery dies, I can just change it out while I'm on the range. So anyway, I talked at you a bit. hopefully that explains a bit about timers. Features you should look for. Again, the features and the menu I think are the important part. So the ability to adjust if it's instant or delay on timing. The par times are a really valuable training tool, so to be able to adjust those easily. The sound, how loud it is, to be able to adjust how loud it's going to be. You don't want to annoy other people you live with. And then that delay. So on random, how long the delay is going to be before it beeps. Because if that's just set at a fixed time every time, I don't like that as much, because you're going to get used to that, know that it's coming, and that's when you can start to anticipate it, or you're just sitting there knowing it takes some of the guesswork out of it. I like the not knowing, where you hit the button, you're relaxed, looking there, and you just know the beep's going to come, and then when the beep does, then you're looking to stay relaxed, go fast, look cool, try to shred, that kind of stuff. So anyway, hopefully this was helpful and gave you more answers than questions. If you have more questions about shot timers, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'll answer them the best I can. Again, I'm not super emotional about which brand you buy. I think it's important that you buy one. Look at the menus. And I don't think $300 and $400 timers are really worth the money. I think something in the $120 to $140 range will suit you plenty well. Just keep an extra battery with you in your range bag, whatever, and that'll serve you for a long time as far as training goes. In the case of this Pocket Pro 2, like I said, it's been drowned in water at least once, and maybe it's 10 years that I've used it, something along those lines, and the buttons are still working. It gets a bit dirty, or it gets washed off with like a Clorox wipe once in a while, but it's still going strong. So at this point, for $120 that I spent 10 years later, it doesn't owe me anything, and it's still working great. So anyway, if you have questions, comments, drop them below.